Hi, I'm Mark Daniell at the Toronto Sun. I'm here with Steve Simmons, Toronto Sun sports columnist. It was a bit of a sad day at the Toronto Raptors Media Day as Masai Ujiri came out and announced the death of Dikembe Mutombo. Steve?
You know, Mutombo is one of the heroes of his life, and you have to understand where Masai comes from and what his background is and how important a figure Mutombo, an African giant, was in the development of Masai Ujiri as a person, as an executive. And so today he comes out and says, oh, optimistic day, we're starting training camp, it's media day, it's all that. And a couple hours later, he has to go back to the microphone and announce that Mutombo is dead. And in saying so, he broke down a few times and could barely finish sentences and called him one of the most important figures in his life. And when you hear him talk about Mutombo and the qualities that he brought to almost anyone that he met or dealt with, you realize that he was an NBA giant and he was an international figure of importance, and he was, for Masai Ujiri, one of the most important people in his life.
And then along with that, Masai talked about the ownership structure change, Rogers taking over, and you asked him about that. What can you tell us about that, Steve?
Well, the ownership structure before really had Larry Tannenbaum, even though he wasn't the majority owner, essentially the owner of the Raptors. And so Larry dealt directly with Masai Ujiri on anything to do with Raptors. And now with Edward Rogers buying control, or the Rogers Company buying control of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, they're going to be the owners, which will mean new ownership. And in the past, there had been some problems with Masai and Edward Rogers about a contract negotiation, and he dealt with that today, saying, all negotiations are difficult, and I don't have a problem with Ed Rogers, and Ed Rogers doesn't have a problem with me. And, you know, they're going to start from scratch, and he's going to be judged, as he says, on how the team does, which is how every executive in sports wants to be judged. But with whenever there's new ownership, I don't care what he's saying today. Whenever there's new ownership, there's always, how will it be different? And we don't really know the answer to that until they take over, which won't happen for a few months now.
And we heard the word rebuilding often today, rebuilding this morning. So what do you envision for this Raptors team going into their 30th anniversary season?
It's going to be a long year, I think. It's going to be a long year in watching these kids develop or try and develop. You know, what we don't know right now is how good are these players other than Scotty Barnes? How good a coach is Darko? What kind of players have they put around Scotty Barnes, and how are they going to develop? And it's funny because you never want to say to a player, we're rebuilding. What you want to say is we're trying to win. But management is looking at it from a different perspective. How is this guy getting better tomorrow and the day after and the day after? And so that's what they're looking at. This is not a one-year project. This is a multi-year project to try and get this team back to where Masai Ujiri wants them to be. You know, the 50-win-ish kind of teams that he had for so many years, you know, with Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan and the players he had prior to this group.
So what do you expect in terms of wins?
Somewhere in the 30s, I would say. Not 40, I think, is too many for this group, I would say. And too many because the East is really strong. And so if you look at how strong the East is, I think it's going to be tough to get into that play-in game, which is top 10 in the East. I think the Raptors will be around 11 or 12 in the conference, and in the 35 to 38 win. You know, if I was a betting guy or one of those websites setting the odds, that would be the over/under, I think, for me.
All right, thanks, Steve. Catch more of our sports videos over at TorontoSun.com.